You know, I always assumed that someone that won Golden Demon was a master of all things miniature painting, and they always knew the next step to take in a project, and of course, they never made any mistakes. Well, for me, that's not the case. You know, it was reassuring the day that I figured out that nobody has it all figured out when it comes to this hobby, and that try as we might, even when we're working our hardest on something like a Golden Demon project, we're all gonna make mistakes. Me especially. I seem to make a lot. So let's rip this band-aid off and dig into today's topic, which is working on my Golden Demon project for this year. Two important aspects of this piece, and that is his fur-covered loincloth and his red metal plate on his belly. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I made some mistakes on these parts, and I want to talk them through with you so we can figure out how to fix those and how to prevent them in the future. All right, let's start out with the fur, which is something we often have to paint on our miniatures. And fur is a complex thing because it often changes tones and colors to feel natural across the model. And I like to start with a wet blend when I'm doing furs. And the key with this is using the biggest brush that you can fit into the tight areas that you're painting and use unthinned paint. I put the 2 or 3 colors I'm going to use for this wet blend on my palette, and I don't thin them with water at all. I then work with my first color, place it where it needs to go in a small section, and then move on to my second color. I place this color right butted up to that first color without them meeting. I then quickly wipe off my brush and swish the colors back and forth where they meet to create a natural blending of these colors directly on the model. Like I said, I work in small sections while doing this process just so the paint doesn't dry before I get that second color in and start swishing it around. And wet blending gets you a nice, smooth looking color transition for interest really quickly. And it does take a little bit of practice to get the hang of mixing these 2 colors together directly on the model. I find that trying this out on a bigger surface of the model while you're still learning, something like a cloak or a large section, is an easy way to kind of get some practice in, and you'll soon find that you can do this wet blending even on small surfaces. And we're only a couple minutes into this video, and we're already to one of my biggest mistakes in this process, and that is understanding how light colors and how more saturated colors really work when it comes to paint. You see, I made this transition across this fur to be fairly dark. Yes, the brightest color is an off-white cream, but when you work with white paints or paints that have a lot of white pigment in them, they work much more naturally at a layer consistency. If you've ever tried to thin down a paint that's got more white pigment in it, it will see that it kind of separates, it gets grainy, and that's because white pigments are much larger than the average pigment size for most other colors. And because of that, I should have started this whole wet blend quite a bit lighter, as I wanted this whole fur to feel lighter, especially towards the tips. And I realized this when I was working on this next step, which is building up the highlights across the fur texture on the model, single strand by single strand. And I'm making each of these successive layers slightly lighter. We're trying to build up the lightness across these highlights. And because I started with a fairly dark color, I'm gonna have to make a lot of passes across this fur to create a nice slow transition up to lighter and lighter fur texture. Now, if I would have started with a lighter tone for that wet blend, what it would allow me to do is actually build up these highlights quicker with layer consistency paint, with light paints, and then I could add back in and control the shadows, the color modulation, the interesting natural organic colors that would happen across the fur with thinned down, more saturated and darker paints. Because I started darker than I think I should have, this cost me a lot of time. It was a lot more back and forth of building up those highlights with layer consistencies and losing a smooth transition in the process. From there, I'd have to glaze back over the colors to create a more smooth transition. And by the time I got to the end, the whole piece felt a little bit darker and less vibrant than I wanted it to. So I had to continue this back and forth process much longer than I would have if I had just started with much lighter colors and then made glazes off of the interesting olive tones and rich warm tones and push those into the shadows in different sections of the model to really create that color variation. Does this mean that I screwed all this fur up and need to start over? No, it just means I learned something, that if I was going to do it over, I would have just started with the two brighter colors instead of mixing in all three, and then I'd go from a mid-tone and then more quickly and gradually up to my pure cream. So that whole base layer would be much lighter and much more open to taking on interesting colors through glazes that I would add later. The problem with what I did was when I started so dark, if I wanted to glaze over an olive tone or even some reddish colors, it's actually not going to show up very well. That dark tone underneath is going to swallow all of that interesting color that I'm trying to put on top. TLDR of what I'm trying to say here is that if you want the final look of the surface to be a light color, or you want to add nuance with color modulation through glazes, always start lighter than you think. You'll make your life much easier that way, and it'll take way less time. And speaking of that color variation with thinned down paints known as glazes, it is an easy tip to really add a lot of realistic depth and interest to your models with not much effort. The key is we have to go over lighter colors for these to really show. Or if we're going over darker colors, the ones we place on top must be lighter and have a little bit more depth built up to them, so that lightness overtakes and creates a bit of opacity over the dark underneath color. One good takeaway I can say from this learning process is that by layering up again and again all of the texture on this fur, I've created quite a bit of depth, and it lets those base tones pop a little bit back to life when I push back up to a pure highlight. Now, again, this could have been done much quicker, but regardless of how many colors and transitions we add, it's important to reestablish these highlights as our final step of painting the fur. I also didn't push the saturation on the fur to an extreme because I feel in nature it kind of pulls some of those vibrant colors away as a hide ages. Also, I'm going to take what I learned on this fur and apply it to our next step, which is that belly plate. And I want this to be very saturated. So we're working with another level of contrast here. Saturation right next to desaturation. Now, historically, I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to painting red. I like to start with a darker red as my base color, like this burnt red by AK 3rd Gen. But I'm going to learn from my mistakes with the fur, and I'm actually going to start much more vibrant with my mid-tone of my red on this belly plate. This way, I can control the shadows, but not lose all of that interesting, wonderful depth later. And while I was trying to learn from my previous mistakes, I gotta say, I am concerned, to say the least, with how extremely vibrant this red is compared to everything else on the model with just the base coats. So, see where this goes. It's a new year, which means recommitting to routines and decluttering your life. And surprisingly, today's sponsor, Into the AM, actually helped me in this. You see, I don't want to spend too much time, energy, or money in a given year on my wardrobe, and Into the AM really just took all of that off of my shoulders. The clothing is so high quality that shirts don't fade or crack, so I don't need to replace them every other year. The styles, while varied, are classy and consistent, so I don't ever feel like I'm following trends or fads. Basically, I'll always look like I have my life together when that certainly isn't the case. And they all mix and match so well, so regardless of the season or the weather, I can layer and combine pieces, so even when I'm grabbing the first two things I see in my closet, they end up looking good together. So there's no better time to check off at least one thing on your New Year's resolution list than right now, because Into the AM has their January clearance sale going on right now through January 25th, up to 70% off and massive bundle sales. And to make the sale even crazier than that, make sure you use the link below and code NINJON at checkout for an additional 10% off your entire order, even on top of those clearance prices. Next thing I want to try to learn from on screwing up that fur is I went with a very desaturated brownish green as a dark shadow tone for that fur, and it really sucked all the color out of the piece, which is fine when I'm going for a more desaturated tone. But for this red, I do not just want to make the shadows a darker version of red with some black mixed in. You see, black is much like white in that it just pulls all the life out of any color that it touches. So instead, I'm going with this color called Cardinal Purple. It's dark, it's rich, it's got some purples and some red tones in it, but it is not overly saturated with black pigment. I thin this shadow color way down with water, about 10 to 15 parts water to 1 part paint to make a glaze. And I go over the entire red belly plate with this mix. And I try to focus it a little bit more in the cracks or crevices where more shadows would collect, but I am okay with tinting the entire surface of this red with this color. From there, I'm going in with a second shadow pass, this time with the paint a heavy glaze consistency, meaning it's still about 5 parts water to 1 part paint, but it isn't so greatly diluted. I'm going to take my time and focus on those more shadowed, downward facing surfaces to slowly build up this deep, rich, saturated dark color. And a key thing here is to do 1 or 2 brush strokes and let the paint be. Do not overwork an area. Because this paint is so thinned, it is going to dry really fast. And the more we manipulate it while we're putting more and more brush strokes, the more likely we are to tear pigments just as they're drying. So just swish your brush over one area and move on to another. In a matter of 10 seconds, that initial area will be dry, and you can decide if you need to add more and more layers of this glaze to boost up those shadows. All right, after the shadow step, I am feeling loads better about how this red is looking. We pulled everything down a bit, and if you think about it, if I would have started with a really dark red as my base coat like I usually do, and then added this rich dark shadow into those areas, we wouldn't have the drama we have here. We wouldn't have enough of that more vibrant true red showing that we can then go back and build off of. And that's exactly what we're going to do next. We're going to re-establish the mid-tone, which is that same red paint that we used to begin with, and we're going to boost back up that true tone over that tinting from that initial glaze step of the shadows. And notably, painting red, especially a nice vibrant red that doesn't lean too much towards pink or orange, can be difficult. And this is one trick to doing so. If you start more vibrant with your red, then you add the shadows, then you rebuild that red tone back up with that same paint, you're going to reinforce the overall color to read as that pure red. Interesting side note about having it all figured out before you start, which isn't actually a real thing. I had planned on having some heavy chipping, some rusting across this belly plate because I thought it's kind of a big surface. But as I started to work in the shadows and reestablishing these main tones, I realized that that wasn't going to work. The reason why is when you deal with rusting, it's very warm tones that can go close to black and build up to orange. They live in a similar value and tone to this red belly plate, meaning it wouldn't really show off as differentiated materials very well. It would just create visual noise. And I'm actually really enjoying how the details are looking on the model at this point, that I think I'm just going to scrap the idea of all that rust chipping and weathering entirely. A minute ago, I talked about the struggles for making your red look too pink or too orange as you build up highlights. And here's the tip to prevent that. First and foremost, if you have the large majority of your surface read as true red, which is what we've tried to do here, if we keep the highlights much more minimalist, it will really aid in that surface reading as red and not as orange or pink. Next thing I like to do is actually use a more orangish ochre color. Something like this Tau Light Ochre, when added to our base red, will make it brighter without pushing towards pink or too much towards orange. Now granted, it does get a little bit of orange tones in there, but not so much that it drastically reads otherwise. This is the kind of color that I often find if I want the final surface to read as red, I'll use as highlight. After the 50-50 mix highlight, I then go to pure Towelite Ochre, and this is kept to very small, fine areas. We're trying to just define the shapes and get the crisp, brightest edges and dots with this. So you'll see it's mostly line work and mostly edge highlighting with this. And that allows us to really define the shapes, define the edges to showcase all the interesting detail on this surface without overwhelming it with too much of this orangish ochre. Where I learned this trick was actually looking at Official Games Workshop heavy metal paint jobs, and I really liked how a lot of their red looked crisp, clean, vibrant, and still red as red, which is why I tested out this color. It goes to show you that even if you've got recipes you like, even if you've got a process to paint something you like, keeping your eyes open to how other people do it, different colors they use, different techniques they use, you can pick up some really cool stuff. All right, let's get back to talking about rust and more specifically rusty metals. There are some aspects on this belly plate that I want to be true non-metallic metal, and they're all quite small. I start with a really dark, warm brown across the entire metallic surface to act as a base coat. This will read then as dark rust. And then when we build up with a cool gray over the top, it showcases the shadows feeling more rusty, and the bright true steel that's showing underneath is offset by that contrasting cool bluish gray tone. Now I keep the gray highlights on these metals very minor. I don't want to base coat very much of this dark brown surface with the gray. I just want to define edges and shapes, because where the metal is going to show its shine is actually going to be in very small condensed areas, and it'll get really bright really quickly. And I mix in some ice yellow to my regular Mechanicus standard gray to really boost up that vibrancy quickly before coming back with a bit more work on the rusts with some Doom Bowl brown, maybe a little bit of Scrag brown to make more vibrant orangey rusts in the areas where the moisture would collect around these pieces of metal, to add some color variation, some depth, and bring them to life to showcase more that these are rusty metals that just have that bright glint of shine showing through. And it took a while. There was a bunch of back and forth. There was a bunch of extra time spent on these sections, but this part of the model for Golden Demon, the fur and the red belly plate, are now done. And what this reminds me of is that if you ever wait until you have it all figured out, until you know exactly which steps you're going to take before you start painting, you're just never going to start. And you're going to close yourself off to reading the model as you're painting it and adapting as you go, because after all, that's where the learning really happens. And you know what? Even when you make mistakes, even if it's for something you're spending hundreds of hours on for competition, it's just paint. You can paint over it. You have not screwed up the entire model. You've not screwed up the entire paint job. You can just keep working, and it will look better if you figure out how you want to make those changes. And I appreciate you joining me on this journey through this year's Golden Demon project. I really appreciate your views. It helps me focus on this project, share what I learn, and share how I execute on my painting for competition. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your subscriptions so you don't miss future videos in this series, as well as some other weird videos that aren't Golden Demon that I'm going to be doing as well. Also, of course, a massive thank you to the members of the Ninja on Patreon. There's a link down below if you want to check out the cool stuff you get as a thank you for supporting me there, like my behind the scenes weekly Wednesday vlogs where I showcase what I'm working on, what other weird things I'm testing in the hobby, and of course, access to the Ninja on Discord. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to the painting desk because we have another video coming next week. This one will not be on the Golden Demon project. It'll be on something weird and wacky I've been wanting to do for a while. So make sure sometime between now and then you find time in your day to slay the gray.